What's up, listeners of the Insider Omaha podcast? This is Tyson Compton. I am super pumped today to check in on a favorite person of mine in Omaha. His name is Mike Moylan. He is a figurehead of Omaha development on the urban side, as well as some of the residential, but mainly focusing on the space of downtown Omaha. He is somebody I've admired for a long time, but they have been responsible for massive projects in Omaha and its growth of the Capitol District, the Key Lime Building, which is the newest one they're working on right now. He's done the Paxton Renovation Hotel. And what an individual that I would just admire and look up to in terms of how he approaches life. You can just tell this guy is a rock star of an individual and somebody I look up to. Can't wait for you guys to hear this interview.
Yeah, one other thing, guys, just really quick, if anybody who's watching this, I feel like every podcast I've ever learned from or watched, the way I've learned about it or watched it is because someone shared it on social media, or my friend told me about it, or Tyson sent it to me on text. The only way this is going to grow is word of mouth. So if you find any value in this, you like this podcast at all, drop a quick share on your social media, text it to a friend, tell a friend about it. We'd really appreciate it. That's the only way it's going to grow. So without further ado, let's get on the podcast.
So you have your phone on speed dial from City Council, just like that every day.
You said City Hall.
City Hall. Sorry. You don't want that one.
Yeah, that was Steve Curtis, the finance director.
Okay.
And there's just a lot of things that we've seen in the world that, we like to share what we know with them, and we have something we're going to volunteer to talk about on some of the projects that they have going.
Good. Sweet. Do you have it? Oh my gosh, that's gonna sound terrible on record.
Yeah,
but has Omaha been really good, or has it always been really good about crosstalk like that between City Hall and the developers and just people that have a little pulse on the macroeconomics of the city?
Yeah. So we were very fortunate that a lot of the people in the planning department were really committed to an urban Omaha. For instance, some of the people that a few of them left are actually working at City Hall, but when they first started working at the city, they planted those trees that are out in front of Toads.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. They personally,
they
were on a weekend. They were so excited about trying to make some things happen for downtown, and specifically the old market, which was the cornerstone of where our people's interest in downtown started. In recent, but it was really funny to hear that these guys were down there planting those trees themselves to make that happen. So they were committed to that. But then on top of that, more importantly, everybody's education and everybody's time and effort that they've spent to learn about urban development, it has been a collaboration.
That's awesome.
I think any city development, especially in its urban area, it's a journey.
Yeah.
Okay. It's never stopping. If you go to Chicago, New York, there's cranes and everything happening. And so it's clearly a journey that has to happen on both the public and private side.
Yeah.
And we've had some really good people in City Hall over the years that recognized and invested in the fact that a strong urban core is far and away one of the best things for the future of a city.
Yeah. How imperative is it, or how much does it change depending on who the mayor is? Like how much of that leadership filters down?
We've been very fortunate with Mayor Stothert. She's been fantastic. She's recognizes public-private partnerships, and she's been able to bring in the right people at the right time to make some things happen. And she's been fortunate too to have the philanthropic community we have that has stood behind her on a lot of things. That's cool. So that's clearly a great collaboration. Yeah. But I was around with Hal Dobb too, and he was one of the instrumental things to make things happen in the Union Pacific Yards and the Gallup campus and things like that. And those were huge things to happen at the time and big milestones for downtown. The UP yards were just north of downtown. And when Union Pacific gave those or sold that back to Omaha or whatever the case would be, it basically doubled the footprint of what downtown was, which kind of allowed the Capitol District to be in the middle of everything.
Yeah.
If without that, it would have been on the fringe of downtown.
Yeah.
Then it turned out to be right in the middle of it when you put the Civic Center and Convention Center and Arena.
Well, and just like thinking about the scale, the Capitol District is south of like the event center and the baseball stadium, and then we have NoDo going north. That I mean, we're getting legitimate districts and less than square mile blocks of stuff that is going on down there, and it's all filtering back down to the original, which is the old market, which is kind of where it all started, right?
Yes. Well, one of my favorite things to say, and I say it often, is blocks downtown are like miles out west.
Yeah.
So if you want to live by Westroads Mall and you're a mile away, life is great.
Yeah.
You're back and forth all the time. 10 miles away, not so much.
Not at all.
Downtown, if you're moving downtown for your office,
You're a block away.
Life is good. 10 blocks, not so much. Then you put in one-way streets and patterns and extra stoplights and stuff. It can really add to that a lot. But for the most part, it's a good paradigm.
Yeah.
Like up northwest of downtown will be like 132nd and Fort.
Yeah.
Whereas 114th and Dodge might be by the interstate or whatever. So it's really helps a lot to frame what you're thinking about when you talk about urban development.
That's cool.
Never thought of it that way, but that does make sense.
Yeah. Is there some other cities that you guys have taken a liking to that you're like, gosh, I really like how they do this. They do their planning department's exceptional. As we kind of grow and develop as a city.
Shamrock has not so much, but my company, Shamrock Development, but the city of Omaha has found some that there's patterns and things happening that you can kind of emulate. I guess I would probably say Kansas City by proximity, but it's also twice as big.
Yeah.
Population-wise,
twice as big. Yeah. And Omaha is more of an agrarian economy where they had a big manufacturing economy.
Oh,
so they just have a different economy over the last 100 years, I'll say, or 75 years. But Indianapolis is a town that I think is similar to Omaha now because they have a lot of philanthropic support.
Okay.
And they have a lot of good things going for it in terms of economic and city growth initiatives. So I would probably put
that's cool.
Indy.
Yeah.
And, Omaha and Indy is similar.
Just a question, because it's always been like almost like a monstrous thing to think about to me. You mentioned to us before we started this that you were a broker before you got in development. How did you make that transition from a broker to a developer? Because that seems like a monstrous task. To me, to get in development.
Well, in high school, I worked at a hardware store. Saks, you name it, we got it hardware at Dietington Center, which I don't know, it's been a while, so not everybody remembers anymore. Anyways, it was my favorite job. I like tinkering with things. I liked the tools and it was fun and stuff like that. College, I worked for my landlord to pay my rent so I could try to get out of college and live for free. And I had some friends whose father was a developer in the Chicagoland area and they had a nice life. And so when I came back, I kind of knew I wanted to be in real estate. Yeah. And I thought the best way to learn was to be a broker. So I went straight into commercial real estate at the time.
What year was that?
1987.
Okay.
So just on the tail end of all the high interest rates, just got out of that whole mess.
Well, I joked that I got in with the RTC, which nobody here would know, with the Resolution Trust Corporation, which was a government entity to bail out the savings and loans at the time. So it really did affect the economy. Yeah. And back then it was commission only, and so for a while I moved back home with my parents in my early 20s for months and years, not years, but for a little while because, hey, the economy was bad and I didn't want any more debt. So anyways, then I was a broker, commercial broker for quite a few years. And then a while back, I was trying to find a building to invest in and I was looking at some midtown duplexes and stuff. And I got aced out on a few deals. And then I came across this building downtown and just kind of fell in love with it. And that was kind of the beginning at 10th and Dodge, where Nosh and 1000 Dodge Events is. That was in 1994. We bought that building from a family who was basically just trying to get rid of it.
And what did you do with the building?
At the time, I cleaned it all up and did a lot of work there myself, and then brought it in to make it leasable, and ended up leasing some to a carpet store. And then I cleaned up upstairs and had a couple warehouse projects. And I actually put an apartment for myself there on the corner. And so I moved down there. There's only 2 or 3 people within 2 or 3 blocks down there at that time living. And that was before the UP yards and the arena and all this.
Very industrial down there.
I remember RJ Neary said to me when I was buying the building, he's like, what do you want to be way over there on Dodge by yourself for? And I'm like, I don't know. I think it's an exit ramp. Somebody will want to be there.
Yeah.
So it was a relevant question though at the time because there wasn't that much going on over north of the Gene Leahy Mall.
Yeah.
So that got your foot in the door.
Yeah, that was the first thing. And then as time went on, when the Arena Convention Center, and I lived there for about 10 years, and then the Arena Convention Center.
Oh, you lived in that one spot for 10 years?
Yeah.
Wow.
You've been urban that long. You've been downtown that long.
Yeah.
You've
Have you
never
ever moved out of there?
About 94.
Wow.
Well, I moved out of that space for a couple places while we were building. We then ended up renovating the building and turning it into condominiums,
Yep.
adding a floor and things like that. So I moved to an apartment in the Old Market for a while during that. And then now we live at 9th and Dodge, my wife, and we have twin boys that are 10.
Yeah.
So I have not moved away from that area since
Wow.
94.
Is there any pull to go a little more suburban, or you still love it down there like you did at the beginning?
Well, when the kids were
Younger.
when they were like 1 or 2, all of my realtor friends were sending me all these
I bet.
listings all over Omaha, just assuming,
Yeah.
because most people have not hung out downtown that long with a family.
Yeah.
But we're committed to it and liked it, and it's fun. And I remember there not too long ago, the boys were like, "Hey, when we move, we'd like to have a backyard." And we're like, well,
You're not moving.
We're not really moving, first of all. And second of all, we have a little extra, we have a nice space. We have plenty of space in our place. But I was explaining, well, hey, the Gene Leahy Mall, that's your front yard.
Yeah.
And now we're going to have a science center, a world-renowned science center in our backyard.
pretty awesome.
So, and over the years, we go to the Children's Museum at the drop of a hat.
Yeah.
Walk through the mall.
My wife loves that Children's
So
Museum.
it's a good life.
You're close to the zoo. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah,
there.
that's true.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Miss out on the yard, but makes you go do other stuff that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of green space nearby. Like right now, the kids are 10, so we'll go throw the ball around on some of the Mecca land, or even next to the Holland Center. There was a nice piece of land there too. So and they keep it up.
You mentioned the Mecca, which is the folks who draw the talent into the city. Do you help drive, or do the developers help drive Mecca, or does Mecca help drive the development?
Well, Mecca is the board that runs the convention center arena. And to me, I felt that the best thing about our philanthropic that we've done is they hire the best people to build them, design them, and make everything happen. I wish we had another half an hour, I could talk about the steel house itself.
Oh, yeah, that's going to be
how flexible
incredible.
it is, how interesting it is. It's going to be so usable for so many different reasons because it was thought through by the right people, designed by the right people, and our philanthropic community just really knows how to invest in to get those buildings built. But on top of that, they've always hired the best people to run these things. Roger Dixon has been at the helm of the Mecca, or at the CHI, since its inception.
Still,
And he's still running it. He's doing an incredible job. Joan Squires over at the Holland Center, she's remarkable. I mean, it's almost taken for granted now that we get the best Broadway shows in the country right here in Omaha. And now, and it should be taken for granted to some degree because, it's supported and people do it and people buy the tickets and show up. On the other hand, to have the level of expertise to bring in and all that is really just remarkable.
Well, and the fact that, they've been there for, decades. I mean, they're obviously doing an exceptional job. The leadership here in Omaha for those kind of facilities are, not to say reinventing themselves, but staying on the cutting edge of everything. Like, they're staying ahead of the pace of the people to bring consistently great entertainment to the city. And those are the people you get to work with all the time that kind of a phone click away to kind of be in contact with as well.
Yeah, I'm just always impressed by every time they turn a corner with a new project. I mean, go look at the Gene Leahy Mall, this new $300 million park.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many people were there this weekend. Now, this was the first nice day.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, we were there every weekend for the most part. And it's always crowded. Even in the dead of winter, there's people walking around down there. It's just a remarkably attractive space to want to hang out.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
It really is awesome.
They've done a great job. I've been there a couple of times with our girls as well.
And there's still 2/3 of it left to open.
Yeah. Which is great.
My kids are looking down there on the riverfront. There's these egg-shaped things to climb around in. Rocket ships, our kids are calling it, and they just can't wait to go down there.
Oh, that's cool.
We'll be the first ones. Our kids were the very first ones to play on the playground because it
believe
opened
it.
at Friday morning at 7:00,
Yeah.
and we got wind of it the night before. We were
Like,
walking
let's go down
around.
there. Yeah.
So we showed up, and we were the first ones in line, but it was raining, so that helped.
Yeah.
But we were there, and we did it. So
Maiden
we want to
voyage.
try to keep that record going for the rest of the parks.
That's cool. That's cool. So you've lived in Omaha your entire life?
Yes, I was born right here in Omaha.
Big family.
Second oldest of 6.
Yeah.
Lots of cousins.
Yeah.
It's a good family here.
Yeah. Are you the only one in the real estate space?
Yep.
Yeah.
I am.
Okay. Were you kind of the renegade? Like, what was it like growing up with 6 kids, big Catholic household, I'm assuming, and just Irish Catholics just running around on the city of Omaha back then?
Exactly. We're a good Irish Catholic family. Like the rest of them, we had 6 kids, and all my cousins had 4 or 5 or 6 or 7. And so for the most part, though, I grew up at Christ the King. And at the time when it was the big new school, 3 or 4 classes per grade, 100 in a grade, and like St. Pat's of Elkhorn is now, or some of these other new Catholic schools out in West Omaha. But yeah, that's what we grew up like, and it was in the 70s, and we had a good life, and
that's awesome.
we were blessed.
Yeah, that's cool. What did your parents do, or what for work when you were growing up?
My mom's been the homemaker.
Yeah.
She's now turning 90, and she finally moved out of the house a couple years ago into an assisted living, and she's in a care place now. And but my dad was an attorney and a lobbyist, more importantly, and he was. They were all politicians. My dad and all his brothers in the 70s. If you go back, my uncle was a juvenile judge. My dad was a lobbyist and a lawyer, and he was on the Board of Regents of the University of Nebraska. And that was a real good perk because we got to go to bowl games all the time.
That's awesome.
When we were young kids. That was where your average Irish Catholic big family, you couldn't afford to go on vacation. So we were lucking out and going to these big places because of the university connection. And then my other uncle was a developer, actually, and a lawyer. And then aunts were married.
I'm sure it makes for some interesting dinner conversations with those people that are plugged in the community like that when you're back in the day. Like, just
I bet. Yeah,
I go out to lunch with a lot of my cousins from time to time, and we have a biannual thing too that we'll get together.
The whole family?
All the cousins and stuff. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Some are out in Long Pine, and a lot of them are kind of sprinkled around the country, but most of them are around here.
Oh, that's cool. Pretty homegrown. Have you come back from like your dad's upbringing, your mom being a homemaker? I mean, what did you see, or what did you observe from your parents that, led you just kind of stay on the path? Because real estate's pretty unrelenting. Like it is not going to cater to your emotions. It's like, hey, you gotta be thick and thin. You gotta stick through it, or else you just gotta go the different direction. Like, what was that like?
That's the old saying: "Chicken one night, feathers the next." That's what that's what real estate can be like.
So true.
So yeah, my mom was a school teacher originally, but then when you had that many children back then, of course, that's when she became the homemaker that she was. And but my dad was an attorney by trade, but he was also quite entrepreneurial, I think, for the most part, in the way he went about his business too. And they were farmers from Bayard, Iowa, and hard work. That's really what it all came down to. We all got to see what hard work means and working long hours and putting in the effort, but also being committed to the community. My dad did a lot of social and charitable things, and my mom, but for the most part, being committed to the community and trying to make things happen, because the betterment for yourself is also the betterment of where you live and work.
So you're a father of twins, and we have young kids as well. We have girls, but the one thing my wife and I talk about all the time is our parents, my dad's self-employed. My mom worked for government for the most part of her life. And she used to be a door-to-door salesman selling World Book down in rural communities of Nebraska.
Really?
So she remembers going down farm mile-long driveways of farmhouses, having a book in her hand trying to sell World Book door to door. And she won a car and everything. She was great.
Oh, she was a good salesperson.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Great. But I heard something the other day. Is basically our generation, this 30-somethings. We're going to be one of the first generations of kids that have affluent parents, as per se, the bottom, blue collar world. We have a pretty want for nothing kind of world. And I'm just kind of curious from your disposition of, older dad, younger kids, how have you guys tried to show that or instill that as a parent? Because I'm talking to my daughter, how do they visualize or see that in your daily activities? Do you guys ever talk about that? My wife and I talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
So just curious.
We do. And I think a lot of people recognize it. I'm not sure everybody's talking about it.
Yeah.
But the reason I'm here, Tyson, is you coached our boys in basketball this year, and they rocked it.
Yeah, we a lot of development. It was good.
And I think they lost in the final game, but they also played for their grade school, Pius, and they ended up winning the championship there. Yeah, and that was a big thing.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that was, but anyways, you were a good coach, and we appreciated it. You and your brother.
Got lucky.
We did get lucky. Yeah. And anyhow, That's a tough question, and we do think about it a lot, but it really comes down to, family, and it comes down to, respect, and it comes down to, watching what you do for hard work. My wife, Sigrid, she's a hardworking banker. She's been a banker her whole life, and so we just make sure that we make a point that we don't have to make a point. We just show it's kind of in our nature to work hard, save money. And I remember Sigrid sharing a story about her family when she was quite young, and their family had their mortgage burning party because the family had paid off their mortgage at their house. And that I remember hearing that story from Sigrid, and so did she. So we do make a point to talk about not being in debt and doing things, and we only spend money if we need it. But on the other hand, we also want to make sure that we're not too cheap. And if there is a sport or something that they're really invested in, we do it right. On the other hand, we have hand-me-downs.
Right. Boys go through clothes like crazy.
Cousins. We pick stuff up. And so they recognize the value of a dollar. And it is kind of almost that simple, that it's going to come, whatever you're doing. And I know the nature of where you guys came from too, that it's going to be kind of ingrained in there. But you can't take it for granted. Is my opinion.
Can never be too far away. I mean, you're always on the the spectrum of where that's at, and I think that's interesting. I appreciate sharing that. That's it. And behind the scenes story too, when I first got out of the Marine Corps, I flew back to Omaha, and I actually met with Mike. Oh, we're telling us 10 years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I was looking for a job.
Yeah.
And I knew I wanted to be in real estate.
And he met you, and he was like, "No way."
Yeah, basically.
There's no way.
He's like, "I appreciate your service, but you're in a different class, buddy. We got to wait a little while." But it was really great because I was always fascinated by the growth and development of Shamrock development.
Yeah,
and I was like, "God, this is so cool what it's doing for the community." I was really big in, I believe in the development of where you're at. You grow where you're watered. Where you water it. So. And Mike was unconcerned about just taking some time and like talking to me and seeing that, well, what are you looking for? How can I help? I'll share my story and then take it one step at a time. And that was really, I just really appreciate just the humility of it. And I was really grateful that
is a total common trait of people that are at the top of their game.
Totally.
I'm dead serious. It is like every person, like when I first got into real estate, it's similar experience. I only reached out to like the top of the top, and they all, not all, but most of them gave me some time, even 15, 20 minutes. And like now realizing that, I'm like, God, that was huge.
Oh man.
So that's probably like, you remember that from 10 years ago with you. So that's like it's a cool thing.
That's why those people you went to see are at the top. They want to give back. They're leaders and they want to see things happen. And at the time, like Shamrock, we still only have like 2 or 3 people work at the company. We're the king of outsource because I like to build buildings and I like to design things and be in the middle of things. I'm not really big on managing a big company.
So Shamrock itself only has how many employees?
3.
You and one of them?
Yes.
So 2 other than you.
Everything else, bookkeeping, lawyers, architects, designers.
That's awesome,
it's all outsourced with people that are and local. We're committed. We like to do it locally and stuff, but we're small but mighty. I've had more employees, like during the Capital District, we had 4 or 5. And but for the most part, we're kind of a rifle approach. I don't have a big monster to feed, like a company that needs $3 million a year to make the payments and
payroll and all that stuff.
Payroll and stuff. And so it works out pretty well that
I feel like that's the way to do it.
what we're doing and what we like to do. So.
Well, and I think it limits your amount of emotional capital too. You can invest. I mean, like when
the mental
part of it, when you're handling a small intimate team, you're going to go, contract with the best of the best in the area.
And you're just
they're on their game, and they gotta be. They have to own up to the people who are hiring them versus being in the machine of their own company. Well, we got to do all the HR pieces. You kind of alleviated that and outsourced it in a good way. That's
and we've never really been big on having. We've had a couple interns over the years and stuff, but the problem is I just didn't think we were set up to really properly give someone a good experience. And so, to come in and say, "Oh, follow me around," that's not going to be that much fun. But if you have at the right time when we needed it, we did give some good experience for some people. But right now, once again, we don't really have any interns or anything.
So so you've been doing this since 1987, 1996, incorporated stuff. What are you super excited about from the city of Omaha standpoint and development? That's moving forward.
Well, this Gene Leahy Mall thing is, they truly, what are these changing things that are happening, or the game changers, I guess is the term that people like to use. For sure, the Jean Leahy Mall was far and away. I remember when the architect came to town, I was talking to them in this thing, and he's like, God, we go to some of these towns, we struggle to raise $10 million. And they hadn't even started on this and already had $250 million in like 4 or 5 checks. That's 4 or 5 people writing $50 million apiece to make this happen.
That's
to take
amazing.
the step that they did from where it was to where it's going to be, should have taken 30 years. Instead, 3.
Wow.
4. It's just
why do you think that is
huge?
Why do you think that's the case here?
I think we're blessed with 2 things: very, very capable, smart, entrepreneurial minded donors and philanthropic community. They're really smart. They're the biggest businesses. They're the best. They're committed. They also have a commitment to their community, but also, it doesn't hurt that they're all extremely wealthy.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
let's call it
I want to call
spade.
this, you got to call it the truth. But in the end, you've seen a lot of money get thrown away at projects in some cities that are just terrible and just wasted. Yeah. But that doesn't happen here. Some of it goes to waste, but for the most part, they like to invest in things that wouldn't happen by itself, or that would make such an impact. And I just can't tell you, all the things I've seen from the Convention Center Arena, which was another just a great game changer at the time it happened, and all the other development that occurs around it. Exarban Village is a really nice big game changer. I think that really has come together well. And Midtown Crossing now from Omaha to downtown, and that's where that streetcar line will run, and that's going to be a big major. That'll be the next major thing that you'll see, both on the philanthropic side, but mostly just on the economic development side.
And physically, it's tangible. Or I feel like the park is almost more of a culture piece. Like you're trying to create a culture downtown.
Yeah.
It's not profiting money, right? It's an open space to the public. But what that draws in is it helps build the culture that park kind of creates.
Totally.
Creates that active urban space. That's
a good point. I never thought of that. That is a great point, though.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. Just a random question on like, when there's giant donors for projects like that, is that stuff like public, who donated the money? Or do they keep that as usually like a hush hush? Like we don't want people to know. Because I've never seen anything about who donated. You know what I mean?
Well, I'm not one of them,
right?
Unfortunately, but regardless, there's a group called Heritage Services, which is a group of philanthropic people that have formal meetings and formal organization, but it is kind of quiet.
Yeah,
and they kind of work together with their own. But once they get an idea from either on the outside or the inside, and they'll work through it as best as they see fit, and they'll bring in the right people too. We've also got some of the world-renowned architects and engineers and things like that. And that's like I was talking about Shamrock outsourcing. If we don't know what we're doing, we can go find the right people to do it.
Totally.
And they're out there, especially with what we're trying to do. We're not splitting atoms is a thing I like to say. This is, you just got to go find the right people to do it and lead it. We have incredible leaders on that philanthropic side, and they happen to have a lot of money.
That's cool. It's awesome, actually. Yeah.
Which probably caused them why they were so much leaders.
Exactly.
To make so much money.
Yeah, totally.
From the from Shamrock development side, as being the CEO founder, like what it would be if, hey, 5 years from now, you're like, we can really hang our hat on this next piece. Because these aren't small projects that you've done. We're talking
about, I imagine they take multiple years.
Yeah. I mean, just
to do each project.
Capital District was massive. 10, 12 years of work. Plus that was just to get it open,
Right.
And that was quite a journey. And we're very proud of that. I mean, the way that all came together and stuff, it was really interesting on the financial side as well as on the development side and all the other things. I think our Marriott was the only Marriott branded full service hotel to open that year we did it.
Really? That was 2019.
All across the country. Yeah.
That was right on the beginning of COVID, and like people were seeing
it was actually about a year, a little before that. But the point was, it was just that full service segment.
What do you mean? What do you mean full service segment?
Like a Marriott with a ballroom and all the meeting space, restaurant and stuff. That's
versus nowadays people are doing smaller scale hotels,
like a Courtyard or a Hilton Garden Inn or some of those. Those are called limited service and things like that. Service. Now there's some hybrids of that too, but to have a full ballroom and all the meeting space and all the other stuff to go along with it, that was the Marriott brand. And
obviously maybe saw an opportunity there with the amount of business like the Hilton was doing? Would that be fair to say? Like, because they're full service, right?
I think the opportunity started with, we knew that the city wanted to see more hotel rooms in the area. And this is right outside my house. And I knew what we're doing, and I kind of felt what we wanted to do. And so I think that the reason that we were awarded is because we went to Marriott, and Marriott had committed to our project. Wow. And they wanted to see another hotel, and Marriott was the best brand. Yeah. So, you play your cards right too and stuff, but we were able to produce it too. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure a lot of people thought, well, like, who is this guy? And what, 250 million? I mean, this is, but we had a good enough track record in the past, and I think people trusted that we were going to do what we said. Yeah. But we never committed that, it would have to go through the journey and its process, which it did. And it was quite successful. 10
to 12 years focusing on that. Do you focus on other projects while you're doing that? Or is that just a full decade of that project?
That one, we did the 1501 apartment building over on Jackson. We also did the Barker historic rehab during that as well too. Okay. So
some other smaller quote on air quotes, big time air quotes there, projects, smaller projects comparatively.
Well, they were just things that were in our wheelhouse and what we were doing and things. And we have a couple buildings, Papillion. We also have some investments near the airport and stuff like that. So we have a little bit of a diversity now, but for the most part, when we wake up in the morning, we think about doing urban development. Right now, we're working on the Keyline building at 17th and Harney, and it's just a beautiful old building, and the family that owned it was more into the residential side. So I don't want to say neglected. It's just time for someone else to come along, give it a new life, and so we bought that in August. And it's a private office community. We're rebranding it. It's a bunch of small single offices. So counselors, lawyers, entrepreneurs. And
so you make like almost a co-working type space?
Yeah, we were joking that it's like we work without the free beer and ping pong. Okay, so we'll have like private office. You could shut your door and work. Omaha, you're an entrepreneur. It seems fun to go sit in a room and hang out, but
you got to work.
You got to work.
Yeah.
So our door's shut, and you can open
our door's shut.
And get to know the neighbors, and so it's a unique environment.
That's cool,
but it's also affordable. Which this part of downtown, it was important with the new. Juvenile detention center and all that court system being put in, that there's a lot of support that would need to be near that. And so we're able to do it at a really affordable cost. Like you can rent an office down there for $350 to $400.
Oh, that's awesome. Super affordable.
And get access to some of the things.
Yeah. And the networking of being in the building, right?
It is. Yeah. We like to see that happen. We're going to encourage it. It has to kind of be organic.
It does. You can't force it.
But you can lay out a foundation to encourage it. And so we're doing that too.
How much, or do you do much other than just kind of word of mouth? Market research are you doing to make sure that these are kind of vetted opportunities?
Well, that's funny. I always joked that I wish we would have built like a 6-plex and a 12-plex and 24 and 72 and soon have 15,000 apartments in that one segment. Right. But instead, we have done condominiums. We've done offices. We've done mixed use. We did a hotel. We've done all these different mountains to climb. And so now, we have enough experience on both what the products are and what the thing's going. And basically, I lived down there. My team, Dan England and Marinda Collins, we're all office downtown. We're committed to it. So it's easier for us now after all these years to be able to kind of pick the goal and then go make it happen.
That's super awesome that he knows the first name and last name of every staff member he has at his company. Did you hear that? Just like rattled it off, just like that.
All that deep roster,
just rattles them off.
We got some other good support around us right now. Barron Commercial is helping us out on the management and the leasing of the Keyline. They did a good job on helping us acquire it as well. And Leo Daly Architects and Lund Ross Constructors, they're the people that are helping us. It's a historic rehab, and it's got TIF and other tax things along with it.
So just because I've done other investment deals much smaller, and we do a lot of like residential investment stuff, but just have the structure. So you're going in, let's say you find this building or any kind of building, let's say it's a $300 million building. How do you go about, okay, how are we going to acquire this? Do you acquire with debt, cash, investors? How do you guys go about that part of it? You know what I mean?
I do.
Does it vary?
And that's kind of I've had some really good partners and in some of my projects. And so you learn from them and their successes, but also for the most part, each one's different. Yeah. And like right now, this Keyline one is mostly bank financing. And then usually the whole is worth more than the sum of the parts.
Okay.
So if it costs you $10 million to do something, theoretically, it's going to be worth 12 or 13 million when you're done with it. And that's where you can then leverage some of that. On the other hand, we don't like to over leverage. So which we've done in the past, everybody has in some degree, but regardless, then you can set it up with investors at different levels. But we've used all kinds of
seller financing. I'm sure you've done programs.
That too. TIF, TIF, and EB5 financing, which is a foreign investor financing in the hotel at the Marriott, and we've done 2 or 3 historic transactions, which are historic tax credits and things like that. But there's a lot of interesting things, and my partner Dan England is really good at that and understanding it and researching them and following it and keeping it all in his head, to the point now where it's like, okay,
you do your thing.
You do that and tell me, and I'll do what I do. But we lean on each other.
So would you say you have more of the creative big vision, and Dan offsets that, or I should say complements that in a way where he's a lot more analytical, dialing into more of the numbers and then the nuance?
I think we're both. Like I was saying, we're both kind of, we both have our strengths.
Yeah.
Where it's overlapped, because we're busy, we kind of did let it happen and fall that way.
Yeah.
Dan's very creative and smart, but he's applied it towards
financing and stuff,
structures and financing, where I'm the one that, my family doesn't like me to drive because I'm always looking at stuff and paying attention or whatever.
I bet.
So I'm the one that might envision the beginning physical things, but then we just collaborate well. And of course, it can't happen without Miranda. Miranda's very detailed and understanding and project manager at our company to help keep track of the day-to-day details.
So she's an implementer. She systematizes everything.
Yep.
Awesome.
And somebody like me can be very frustrating for
totally.
Dan and Miranda because of the way I see the world. And we have young kids now too. So I used to work from 7:30 in the morning till 6:30 or 7 at night. And, now I'm lucky to get 9 to 4.
Yeah.
And then
we get it. We get it.
A water bottle off somewhere or something.
Yeah. Right.
I got an interesting question that I've been thinking about this whole time. And that is, I always picture things like whenever young Mike was going around trying to get into his first property, it almost feels to me like it's not impossible, but extremely hard to do that same thing nowadays. If you were that age again in this current environment, you exist. So you have someone else that's kind of a big player in town. You got other big players in town probably. How do you get started in commercial development? You know what I mean? Like, is that even possible today for a single younger person to do that?
For the most part, it is, and any entrepreneurial minded person is going to have a little bit of a leg up, okay? Because when it's your passion and you're thinking about it and you're focused on it, all of a sudden just opportunities and ideas and things just start flowing. And but for the most part, you got to go find some people that will trust you and will invest in you, either with their committing to letting you buy their property. The first building I bought, I didn't get bank financing.
Right, you did seller finance or something?
No lender wanted to lend money at a building at 10th and Dodge. Right. So I did a seller financing on it because they just wanted to get out from underneath of the maintenance of it. And, they believed in me that I was going to do it. And the people that were involved in it really didn't know much about me, but knew enough that I was committed to making it happen. So you got to earn the trust of a lot of the people around you. And that's usually a good step.
Totally makes
and then
sense.
just watch what they do and learn what they do. I take a class in Chicago quarterly. I fly to Chicago every quarter for the last 20 some years. It's called Strategic Coach. And it's an entrepreneurial training program. And because I have a small company, it has helped me grow and make sure I'm looking beyond and making things happen. And so just going out there every quarter, and they give you homework and they do homework, but a lot of times I don't do it. I just
go learn.
Just go there that day and pay attention, and I kind of get my homework done there, and it sets me up for the next quarter. But you got to, I'm huge on, I'm a CCIM, Certified Commercial Investment Member, which is a real estate designation. And I'm just a huge proponent of investing in yourself.
Yes. Totally.
And,
we are too.
And if you have enough confidence in yourself, other people will see that too. So
what is talking about kind of starting anew, what is something today you were proven wrong about from the past? Like, hey, I had an idea when I went into this, and I thought it was gonna be a lot like this, or something that you knew to be true back then, but today is like, that's no longer true anymore. That doesn't apply. Something you've learned along the way. Maybe what kind of comes to mind?
I don't know. That's a very interesting question. I'm not sure I really have one, because I think the fundamentals of, gratitude, respect, hard work, the paradigm changes.
Yeah.
But it's still about earning your way, proving yourself. And I don't know if I'm answering your question.
No, I think
exactly right.
That's a great.
Like just the way things happen in the economy in the world right now are similar, but the people that are making the successes are the ones that are working smarter and harder and are committed and they're, entrepreneurial.
When you mentioned kind of getting first into this stuff, my dad was a self-employed guy for over 30 some years, but he moved back to Kearney and he was trying to market his business, a private investigator. And he was grinding away, working full time as a manager of a hotel. Parents or the family was living in the hotel, but a guy in town was a lawyer, took a risk on to be a private investigator for this case, and that like blew up his not blew up, but definitely got the wheels moving in the right direction
From word of mouth from that attorney.
Yeah. And I'm just kind of curious, who did you run into early in your career that helped you really set wheels in motion? And what was that relationship like?
That's interesting. So when I came back in spring break my senior year, I met with PJ Morgan, who owned the PJ Morgan Company, and I met Lund Company, or John Lund.
All still in existence today. They're still working.
And a guy named Roger Haney Land Corp. And he was a family friend too. And I remember his sage advice was kind of like what I was saying, is like, I'm not really set up to be able to train you, but it's a great business and it's about details. And he talked about kind of some things we've already talked about today, and hard work and paying attention. But he had a small company too. But when all the industrial buildings downtown that I ended up buying later, when they were leaving downtown and going out to the Cornhusker Industrial Park from 84th, 42nd, all the way out to 108th, all those new industrial buildings were all happening at the same time. Roger was the broker that made all that stuff happen. So while it was fleeing out of downtown, it was still making economic development occur on a more modern scale for industrial uses. And so I just remember sitting down with him and him leading the way. And then I worked for Lund for 2 or 3 years, and I learned a lot there. And then I switched over to Investors Realty, and I was with them for 25 years in some sort of affiliation. And I've always been grateful that they really, truly had a foundation built on respect, appreciation, hard work, and entrepreneurial kind of an attitude, because we actually paid rent there as a broker, so we got a higher cut of our splits. So it really brought in some people that were workers. And but the amount of respect and effort that they put into each one of the people individually, it's just a unique place. And I've always felt lucky that I got into Investors Realty at the time with Steve Farrell, RJ Neary. Jerry Heinrichs was my mentor, one of my mentors there as well.
So they're still operating too.
So I'd say those are probably
That's awesome.
The biggest things, but
that's cool. I'm always impressed. I think people have a misnomer. There's so much social media out now, and you see the kind of tip of the iceberg of people's stories.
True.
And I think it's really cool that you have to have that. You have to have this brevity. Like it kind of comes full circle that you might finally arrive, and then the spotlight's on you, but you never were given that. It's always like, hey, somebody gave me a shot, and I just made sure he didn't fall. Hey, it wasn't a hand out, it was a hand up, and I am forever grateful, or something like that.
Steve Harvey wrote a book, and I don't remember if the name of the book. Act Like It's Success, Think Like Success was the name of the book. But in one of the chapters in the book that I remember is there is no self-made man.
No, yeah.
And it's all about how you always have someone that's helping you along the way, no matter what.
Very, very true.
So true.
And gratitude is something that can really change your life when you have a really good idea of how lucky you are and how, people earn their own luck. I'm a true believer of that too.
100%,
However,
100%.
when you have a gratitude for the people and some of the things that happen, it's a good thing.
Totally.
That's cool. And this class I was taking, one of my coaches was commenting about how the enemy of thriving is arriving. and you use that word arriving. Okay.
You should write that
They're
down.
very big on this, you never arrive. If you've
so
arrived,
true.
that means you're done.
Right.
It's like
And
death
so,
starts to set in then.
A little bit,
Slow
but I
death.
mean, you can still change the paradigm, but your future needs to be bigger than your past. And so you always got to be looking at something down the road. And once you feel like you've, quote, arrived, then, you can be confident and successful and proud or whatever.
Yeah.
But if you've arrived and you're kind of rolling up the sidewalks, then
Totally.
it's fine to do, but you just got to recognize that that's what you're doing.
The runway is much shorter. It's like
A
well,
lot
now
of
it's-
companies hang on too long,
Yeah.
not knowing that they're
That's a good point.
arrived and rotting away
really
for
cool.
that matter.
It's so true.
And I don't mean real estate company necessarily, just
No,
any
yeah,
company,
you're right.
but
You're right, though.
I like that. That's enemy of thriving.
If you're not growing, you're slowly
Dying,
dying for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But there's a lot of new, great real estate companies in town here that are young and they're
Oh, yeah.
entrepreneurial
Yeah.
and they learn something and they're focused on what they're doing. And that's the biggest thing is if you find something and you run with it.
They've
stop.
derived from the other bigger houses that are local. Like a lot of them have. Like they've branched off and I can do this. But I think that's a kind of 100% validation of the process of like what investors are doing and like Oak Cap, or Oak Real Estate.
John Heine.
Yeah, I mean those guys have come from the big shops and they're like, hey, I can do this on my own terms, and there's enough sunshine for everybody. Like that's what's cool. It's like I'm not here to take them business from them. I'm here to like continue to grow what I'm already doing and help other people along the way. Like I don't think it's a discredit to companies when they break away. I think it's a credit to them that you're building amazing leaders.
Well said. I agree. I couldn't agree more. And that's why I've always felt lucky about Investors Realty. They always were encouraging me to do what I was doing and stood behind me and stood with me. And I kept my name on the masthead till they finally ran out of room. They called up when they were moving out to their new office area. Steve's like, hey, Mike, we're kind of running out of room with people. I think we're just going to have to take your name off. But I hadn't been to a sales meeting in 2 or 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
So it was fair.
Yeah.
But my point was that I have a lot of gratitude towards what they did and how they supported me and encouraged me and appreciated it.
How
So
do
you're
you,
right.
for as busy as you are and it is I would think, ingrained in the process you have to be to get these things to the finish line. How do you balance social, family, business, philanthropy, as well as just being a kind of a figurehead in the community with people kind of, wanting your ear all the time? How do you balance that?
Well, it's easier now because I'm an older father.
Yeah.
And I've been doing this for quite a few years. So I'm able to kind of pick the things that I'm committing to and what I want to do. And they're more family related too, but also just some other things that we've been close to over the years. CUES is an organization that we're Christian Urban Education Services, which is the 3 Catholic schools in Omaha that need the most support. They're a great group. And Sacred Heart Church is where my wife and I were married and our kids were baptized. And that's where we consider our parish, and the Heart Ministry Center is part of that. But for the most part, St. Pius, our kids go to Pius. We're starting to pay more attention to that. But it's a lot easier when you're older, and I can focus a little bit easier. It's not that I have less runway. I just have more. I can look back farther and see what's going
totally
on.
makes
But
sense.
it's really prioritizing, at whatever age you are. And it's easier to prioritize is what I'm saying.
Nice.
After having the experience we have, both on the deals we're doing as well as where we're focusing our family's efforts.
Totally makes sense. Yeah.
Have you found your efficiency of time is just even better now than it's ever been? Like
Much easier. And also just confidence. I mean, I remember the first deal you did, I must have done 10 million spreadsheets, constantly scrubbing it, moving it back and forth.
Right.
Now we only do about 1 million. Meaning there's still a lot, but the point is you kind of know where you're going and you're able to start from a template or whatever. And spreadsheets just one example, but we know who to call and what to ask for. And, we've earned some reputation around here too. So that usually gets a door open if we need it. Where when I was younger, starting things, it's like, my knuckles were bare from the doors slamming on them.
Totally. Yeah.
That's interesting. You brought up confidence. I think that's such a psyche in itself you did mention, hey, I'm going to go propose this idea of Marriott, $250 $250 million project. And you're walking into a boardroom with their acquisitions and, department. What's that like? And who did you have to be, you kind of that maturation of your growth as a business owner? to be able to get that meeting? How would that process and just
When I looked back on it, there was one person at Marriott that liked me. He liked Omaha, and he liked my project. Maybe not in that order.
Right.
Okay. But the point was that he really did appreciate, they were seeing hotels being built. They know what it took.
Yeah.
And sometimes just having a young, upstart, hardworking dude to shake the tree is, something that they're attracted to. And I never misrepresented myself or my projects or our abilities or anything, but I did make it clear that the foundation that we were setting was very solid, and we had the right people at the table, and anything can topple it over.
Right.
But for the most part, we had a good foundation, because you got to think that guy who did like me, and we still had a personal relationship, calling each other from time to time, and would meet after everything when he moved on from Marriott too. But, in the end, it just, you got to set it up that they're not going to lose their job if they're willing to hang their hat on your deal.
Yeah.
Okay. So they got to go in and sell. I think this young dude from Omaha is going to make this happen. We had to give him the information so he could say, this is why, not just because I think he's good.
I didn't think of that, because they want to keep their jobs too.
If you can sell ice to an Eskimo, that comes with responsibility.
Totally.
Absolutely. Great
And
point.
my point was, with Marriott, you need to go have your ducks in a row and do some things. And we also had a team. I go back to my outsourcing. We had Leo Daly, we had J.E. Dunn Construction. We had some of the biggest names, Lamprey Anderson, Morrissey Engineering, all these great firms that would committed to us. And that shows that we know what we're doing too. And I remember when we were putting our package together, we were throwing on some extra logos from companies, because it was important.
It is.
Because Shamrock didn't have its own logo at the time. And you needed to have, we had our own logo, of course, but it didn't stand alone.
Yeah.
So that's where I think that it all comes along is, and I did believe that our project was solid, and we knew how to lead it. We didn't necessarily know everything of what we were doing, but we knew how to lead it and make sure it would go in the right direction, both on the physical side of how the 5 buildings lay out there, but also on the financial side. It was complicated to do that big of a it's not like one project and one loan. So each one of those buildings kind of had its own loan, and they had to go to different levels and different types of lenders, because it was far and away the biggest hotel to be built in Omaha privately. And then on the apartment building side too was one of the biggest new construction apartments in the world. So you had to have lenders and lawyers and lawyers,
insurance,
and other people, insurance.
Big deal, right?
Exactly. So, it was fun too. We like to make it fun so people want to.
I mean, a huge learning too. I mean, that was something that's never really been done in Omaha, a collaborative space like that.
Sorry?
It never been, that kind of development has never been done like that in Omaha.
It hadn't. And, since then there's been some other ones that have good, but it was because Omaha's like not a New York or Chicago or top 10 or 20 city. We're like 60.
Right.
And so you had to make it fit into Midwestern lenders.
Portfolios
too. Okay. So we didn't just go to one bank.
Right.
Now the hotel did occur because of First National Bank of Omaha. They were the first ones to call me after I was awarded the project, and they stuck with me the whole time.
That's awesome.
So that's another thing, to have a bank as committed to the community. They saw how important this was because of their involvement in the community, but also the fact that their financial structure and stature was big enough to do it, because the hotel was kind of a complicated one.
One thing and correct me if I'm wrong, because of your experience, it's going to be a lot more vast than mine, but you just mentioned FMBO coming in on a major project, local bank that has grown from the dust of the Midwest, acquiring banks all over the country now, mainly in the Midwest. But you had a front seat with them. And a lot of times people don't understand that those kind of relationships exist, and they exist at every level. Like, yes, this is a huge project, and it was a very intimate relationship you had to create with them to have that. But even somebody starting out, that still is available. Like finding the person that will partner with you on that, that it's not unreachable or unattainable. It's about just putting yourself out there. It's a dating game in a sense. Like, hey, stick with me here. If we share the same belief, we can go infinitely farther together than we can apart. And I think that's really important, even on a massive scale, is a relationship that you had and a commitment to the community from the FMBO side, from your development side, what this is going to bring to the Omaha. that belief in each other as well as the project was instrumental to be able to have the funding to do it. I mean, I think that's awesome. If you're trying to buy two or three rental houses and you have a bank that will take your phone call and it's a vice president commercial lender that's hey, I saw this, and then they're kind of throwing in some 2 cents here. That's valuable, and that's not judgment. That's because I believe in you. That's a healthy availability.
People forget that character and relationships still matter for banking.
Yeah. I mean, that's important. I think that's what it made me think of. The big guy versus small guy. There's not very many degrees of separation based upon what you're doing, your activities, just on the scale.
Yeah.
And it's people. Or these big organizations are people.
Yep.
When you're going in to see a guy or a gal or a person that is you're trying to talk to about whatever, it's about a personal commitment and talking about what happens, and then they got to take it throughout their organizations and stuff. But we're once again this philanthropic community, and of course the Lauritsen family and First National Bank has been at the top of it for generations. And if you go back to all the old things, even the 70s and the 50s, you'll see their name on stuff like that, where some of the newer things are new names, but they're still, it's quite a legacy. And without a doubt that to have as big of organizations like that in Omaha, no other bank would have. I couldn't have gone to U.S. or Bank of America or whatever to say, hey, here I'm this dude, or keep saying from Omaha. You got it. So having First National here was able to make that loan.
Yeah, right.
And
that's a big.
But we have a lot of good banks. Union Bank and Trust that works with us. We've got 3 or 4 or 5 banks. Core Bank's been very good to us as well too. And they're now big enough, and Omaha's big enough that you can get a lot done on the local level.
That's awesome.
Especially if you structure it properly.
And then they can help. I mean, there's times where you'll have a Pinnacle and a FMBO together, working together. You don't really think that they're usually competing, but really they can partner and be even more lethal or more.
They do. They do a lot of partnering, and it's big these days to spread the risk, especially on bigger deals.
Well, I'll tell you what, man, we really appreciate your time and coming in here, and it's been awesome. I want to respect your time too. So
I know you have a heart. Yeah. This has been awesome. Mike,
been
thank you so much for
thank you guys.
the insight. This is super cool.
Being invited. I was honored to come out here and hang out. Tyson taking our team to
take him to the championship. You got to win that.
You got to be winners, man.
I owe him one. Yeah, they were winners. They were good winners.
From where we started out, I mean, just like anything, you got to put in the time, and it's consistent. It's about consistency. They did a good job. It's fun.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, again, really appreciate it, man.
My pleasure. So much. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching the podcast. Really appreciate it. As always, if you got any real estate related things that you need, this show is fully sponsored by our personal real estate business. Hit below where it says schedule a call with us, get on our personal calendars, call, text, email us, whatever's best for you. Happy to help you in any way we can on the real estate side of things. Thanks guys. Peace.